Hello. Good evening, mi gente. No novelas. No Access Hollywood. I hope you finished homework. Put the dishes away. Because it's time to have some real conversation.
That's right.
You're listening to WPPM LP Philadelphia 106.5 FM. And you're listening to the What's Next radio show. And, of course, for our podcast listeners, as always, Ray's Latino Talk Podcast, episode 298 of Ray's Latino Talk Podcast.
298, that's a big number to celebrate. You can listen to What's Next at 106.5 FM in Philly and from anywhere at phillykm.org. Listen in and on the TuneIn app, and you can download Ray's Latino Talk Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, Spotify, or anywhere. I mean, anywhere you can download a podcast and get Wi-Fi service and or service in general. Yes, so make sure that you tune in. Be sure to continue to support the movement, to subscribe to Ray's Latinos Talk Podcast with lots of love. You can follow Ray anywhere. Literally, he's everywhere. He's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Instagram, at Ray's Podcast on Twitter and Ray's Latino Talk on Instagram. And you can also email us at podcastrays@gmail.com. And you can find me everywhere at Yaya _Rivera_. So
yes,
there it is.
she is all-encompassing, and as my mother would say, estamos en todo. We're everywhere. So no question about it. Thank you all so much for joining us. Want to shout out, actually, one of our audience members from the West Coast, Margot Porras.
That's nice.
Who has her own podcast. And she reached out to us, sent us a note on Twitter DM and said, hey, just wanted to let y'all know, love what you're doing and have been a fan for some time. So Margot actually works in the media.
That's amazing. So thank you, Margot, for tuning in.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
for being a fan and for reaching out to Ray. That's pretty amazing.
And
so
she's going to be on the show soon and have a lot of interesting conversations well to come. And we want to support her and her, and she also works in public television. So a lot of synergy here, what we're doing here at 106.5 FM. People-powered media. Use that hashtag people-powered media on this Valentine's Day Eve episode. Love is in the air. Later on the show, we're going to talk about the Grammys.
Yes.
Because Latinos we were all up in that. A lot of conversation about the Grammys. Stacking 20 segment. Another 20 gets stacked.
That's right.
In the snow. And we're going to, I suspect during our stack, I think I may have identified a crush that Yaya may have. We'll talk about that later. And we'll get to the Yo Yaya segment. Yaya, maybe give us some advice about people that are doing some last-second Valentine's Day shopping in the wee hours today.
Like, honestly, Valentine's Day, I know that it's super stressful. And I'm not even going to front because I need to get on it myself. Last-minute shopping. What does your partner love? I like to say partner, because just so that everybody knows.
Everyone's included.
Everybody's
That's right.
included.
The loved ones in our lives.
And love is in our lives. And I think it's important to kind of do things where... Like, do you really know your partner? Do you know their favorite color? Do you know their favorite restaurant? Do you know their favorite TV show? Do you know their favorite flavor of cake? Ask yourself those questions. What's their favorite candy bar? What's their favorite? I
know that one.
Do you know that one?
Yeah.
Come on, say it. What's your wife's favorite?
Anything with chocolate is fine.
You can't go the cop out, man. No, come on.
Just,
So like last minute ideas, instead of going out to dinner, surprise them with a homemade dinner, or wake up earlier to make them some eggs or like their favorite breakfast, or do things in regards to what they appreciate the most. Because when you're with somebody, they kind of tell you. So, I mean, my partner tells me, he's like, hey, like, I appreciate when you do this. And we communicate about it to keep each other happy. But, I mean, do something. I feel like too often we're so involved in a space nowadays where everything has to be so materialistic, where it has to be like a car, or like a ridiculous restaurant or jewelry. Valentine's Day, I think, is one of the largest spending days in the United States and in the world in regards to purchasing items. But why not do something I feel with more meaning and something that is valuable and something you'll learn for long term? Give them like a travel. One thing that I really loved that my fiance did was he gave me a travel diary. So anytime we travel, I take it with me so that I kind of jot down a few notes. So anything that's like cute and romantic, I think that's great.
As you can tell, Yaya is very passionate about this subject.
I love it.
I'm telling you, you're a hopeless romantic. I love it. I love it. I love it. Love is in the air.
Isn't every Latina hopeless?
Yeah, well, you said it, I didn't. But I want to thank a great friend of ours and a wonderful activist in Orlando, Florida, named Marie Zapata Callahan. And she sent an email out to her friends today talking about some of her thoughts around this subject. Love is in action. And she brought up some really interesting points, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Yaya. So she talked about some important steps that really kind of put love into action. The first one is listening. Listening to learn, understand to know, really processing what we hear. What is our partner, the loved ones in our lives, sharing with us, connecting to their capabilities, finding the people or resources that could potentially solve the problem for you as a couple or your significant other partner, and then act. Do something to help your partner resolve their issue and sort of build your relationship. So love goes a lot beyond chocolates and sort of the material things. It really is that day-to-day active loving, which is so important.
And grind. It is such a grind. Like, I always joke about this, but even though it's kind of not a joke, I feel like having a relationship and a committed relationship is like another full-time job. Like, you have to be committed, you have to be persistent, you have to be consistent, you have to be understanding, and I love those steps that you gave. Ray and I, before the show, we were talking about the best ways to display love, and my, love Bible, for those of you who are listening and watching on Facebook Live, is a book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, and I read it about 5 years ago, and I read his whole series, things you should know before you get married and all these things, and it really, for me personally, I could resonate how it broke down love and the importance of communicating with your partner, but not only just your partner, but your colleagues, your family, anyone who's in your life, how you kind of have this code and how you communicate with them. And, there are 5 different steps or 5 different types of love, acts of service, quality time, physical touch, there's gifts, and there's, I've already said quality time. I'm putting things, it's quality time, acts of service, gifts, physical touch, and I'm missing the 5th one. Jeez, I said it before the show, snapping, but it's almost like pretty much figuring out what your type of love is and how you want to be spoken to in that sense. So I recommend to those of you listening and those watching on Facebook Live, if you haven't read it, read it. It doesn't hurt. And I love that book. I kind of really love it. And
like you were talking about, it's sort of like love is love grows, but love has to be, it's like a flower, right? It has to be nurtured.
Yeah, it has to be planted.
So because people change, people grow, people's the things that maybe they prioritize as it related to having that love in action change and evolve over the years. And so it's really important because sometimes you make assumptions, especially you have family, kids, you get older, things are happening, dramas, what have you. And you can lose sight of that time and being active and carving out time to sort of check in and listen and communicate is really important.
And I definitely agree with that, Ray. I'm glad that you said that because communication for me personally is key. And when you talk about a relationship, and like how I mentioned earlier, it's like almost like a second full-time job. It really is, but I feel that it's important to nurture that love that you have for a person. And me personally, I value respect over love because I think that respect is something that even in moments when you fall out of love with somebody, you still respect them. So you still give them that you're pretty much fully embedded in them, regardless of how you feel about them and that love connection. So I think that's really important to have the respect there as well. So yeah, I mean, I can talk about love all day. I'm such a lovey-dovey person.
Such romantic, just like J-Lo. And we'll talk about her later. But, in the comments and for people listening to the podcast, we're on Facebook Live here at the Philly Cam Studios, 106.5 FM. And certainly, so we're encouraging our Facebook Live audience to comment questions. What does love mean for them in 2019? It's love is definitely under attack in this modern age. There's lots of forces trying to divide us, to try to stress us out and not focus on the important things in our life. And there's unfortunately we're so busy sometimes combating hatred.
That's right.
That we don't take enough time for ourselves to not only love ourselves and take care of ourselves, but really take care of the people in our life. And I think as activists, and so many people that watch this show and listen to this program are activists on some level. They're doing a lot of different types of community service activism in their own way, whether it's church, cultural organizations, or some of the more organizing work that we do. Oftentimes we can lose sight of. It's important to take time to take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, check in with them. Because it's a very stressful time.
It is a very stressful time, and Ray, I love this topic so much. I just want you to know that. I love this topic so much. And I know
I can imagine the comments on Facebook. I love it. I'm think about the love show,
But to be honest, like what Ray just said is so important. The one thing that I've slowly acknowledged into womanhood, because it's a huge transitional phase from being a teenager in my young 20s, teens, 20s, and now. The one thing that I've come to learn the most is that I was able to find in the way I see it, true love and being treated the way I ought to be treated and the way I deserve to be treated, and not expect anything less, because I came to the terms of what I deserve as a woman, and I came to terms with loving myself, and it's not like I just loved myself and it's magic, like that I always love myself. I mean, I'd be lying to myself. It's a work in progress, like understanding what you deserve and how you deserve it. Because let me tell you something, once you start loving yourself and you're like, no, I'm not going to deal with this. No, I'm not going to deal with that. You're going to, like, the universe slowly starts to put people in your life that, in a sense, want to be around you. And I'm slowly speaking through experiences, not a relationship master. But, I truly do feel like I found my soulmate, my lifetime travel partner, and it's because I told myself that I deserved it, and I came to the point that I wasn't going to deserve less. So when people comment sometimes when they hear what my fiance does for me, like, oh my God, you're so lucky, it's like, no, I deserve that. And he's just as lucky, because though he may do things for me because my type of love is active service, I know his type of love is quality time. So when I say I need to be home by 7 o'clock, I need to be there by 7 o'clock. It's just that constant communication.
That's right.
But for those of you who are listening, never settle for less. Ever. Don't become complicit. Do not become comfortable, and acknowledge that, for me personally, this is the only life that we have. And you need to live it the best that you can. And why not be loved?
I know you're going to get so many hand claps, so many hearts, because you're so right. And, and I've shared this many times on the show that it's so interesting and keep it real that observing the people over the years is that it's amazing that some of the most attractive people that we know are the loneliest. And I think part of that dynamic goes to and not just women, part of that dynamic goes to, there's so many times when you have obvious physical attractiveness as you're growing up, is that so many times people put on you that's your identity. And then you get into a moment where you get into a mode where you're spending so much time sort of living up to that and focusing on sort of pleasing people sort of artificially. Yeah. You're not really taking stock of what makes you happy. And so, and I've seen on the positive side, when people make that flip, then it all changes, it all opens up, and I've shared this on the show many times that one day we'll get on the psych couch here. I lived a big chunk of my life not thinking I was an attractive person. And, and part of that was weight, but that wasn't really it. I just never really identified that way. I identified as like, my identity was around my intelligence and my career and sort of my values and my talents, but not like my physical looks. And so I think that until I was able to feel better about myself, it opened the door to have a girlfriend, have a wife, and open myself up to love. Because what people don't realize is that you're without you're not really doing it for this purpose, but you're actually blocking off people because you don't feel like, as to your point, that you deserved it.
No, absolutely. And like, when it comes to the Latinx culture, especially with the community that I grew up in, women are, we don't have a voice in many instances. It's a very patriarchal society. And we won't get into that, but that's the community that I grew up in. And now going back as a woman and seeing how loved that I am, I've kind of like the background cheerleader, but you can be loved, and you can be loved because you know what? We deserve it as women.
No question.
And men deserve it as well. And when I really want those who are listening to encourage you, like if you're not happy with the person that you're with, ask yourself the question to whether or not it's worth fighting for. And if it is, find a solution, because it's for me personally, being in a relationship, next month will be 5 years, which is a milestone for me through my age. It's, sit down, communicate, talk. Is it worth it? Can you guys get out of this? Because to me, it's always easier to leave than it is to stay together. Yeah, and, that's right. And just figure out what's going on. Sit down and talk. Get a marriage counselor. Get a therapist, even if you're not married. I'm super open to that. If you're having trouble and you're not married, doesn't mean you can't see a therapist. If it's worth it.
Marriage counseling works.
Try to figure
spiritual, it out. Meeting with your priest or your pastor or whoever your spiritual orientation. We have a friend here on the show, Tabitha Castro, who's a divorce lawyer in Delaware. And she actually just started her own radio show, which is really exciting. Shout out to you, Tabby. But I've talked to her on the show over the years, and she says, and I said, Tabitha, how many of these divorces that you've made money on could have been avoided with more communication, a little more effort? She goes, the vast majority of them. A lot of people just either don't have the stamina or feel like they don't know how to communicate with their partner. And a lot of these issues can be avoided and the stress if they just work through identifying ways to communicate with each other.
Absolutely. And making sure that you're identifying that you guys are both on the same page. You know, a lot of those who I speak to on a personal level are like, oh, well, we're not working out. And I'm like, well, what's not working out? I was like, oh, well, you know, they're already married. They already moved together. And now they're only having the conversation about kids. It's like, no. Like, you
got to break all that down from the beginning. That is a big lesson.
That was literally my first date. Like, the child conversation was date number 1. Like, do you want children? Yes or no?
I tell you, you Puerto Rico or something else. After 2 dates, what did Chris Rock say after 2 dates? Like, what we messing around here for? What's going on? But hey, you know what you want.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's the worst scenario when you jump into a situation and you haven't even had those, because it is about this long-term journey. It's not just about, you know, y'all click sexually and and you had 3 fun dates. You know, it's a whole different, you know, those are the important things. And we could talk about love all day. When we come back, let's talk about the Grammys, because between J-Lo and Cardi and all of our homies, there was a lot to talk about. You're listening to 106.5 People Power Media. We'll be right back. Listening to WPPM LP Philadelphia, 106.5 FM in Philadelphia. You're listening to What's Next Radio Show here, and of course, Ray's Latino Talk podcast. So I wanted to shout out someone that is a fan of the show, Gladys Cruz, and she's letting us know, wanted to let people know that she's got a great project going on if you're in Philadelphia. She has actually created a program for young women, young girls who want to be part of a running club. And so Girls on the Run in Heart and Soul for girls in 3rd to 8th grade. At Juliet, I know. So you have a fake and ID going the other way. At Juliet, she does this program, or she's going to start the program at Juniata Boys and Girls Club, 1004 Cayuga Street in Philadelphia. And the program starts in a couple weeks, the week of February 25th, and ends with a 5K run at the Navy Yard in June. So they meet Saturdays and Mondays, very affordable. There's scholarships available. You go to register, you're a young person. Again, any girl, young woman from between 3rd and 8th grade is eligible and lives in Philly. Girl to girlsontheRunPhiladelphia.org. That's girlsontheRunPhiladelphia.org. And you can always reach out to Gladys Cruz, the organizer of Girls on the Run in Heart and Soul for girls, at gcruise79@gmail.com. gcruise79@gmail.com. Running is awesome, and she's reserving a couple spots. They filled out all the teams. They're very close to filling out the teams, but she appreciates the program, appreciates the work we do, particularly uplifting our young women here in Philadelphia. So she wants to squeeze in a couple of our folks into those final spots. So if you have a young woman between 3rd to 8th grade, they're eligible. Like I said, very reasonable registration fees. And there's nothing better to get our young people out there moving and grooving.
And I love this organization. I know them very well due to my philanthropy and like just being a part of the community.
Philanthropy. She got cheddar. When you got money, you're a philanthropist.
Not when you donate too much time. No, I'm kidding. But you donate a lot of time. No, but the Girls on the Run is a great organization. It encourages young girls to, you know, that they kind of treat it from all angles, you know, from athleticism to discipline to self-image. So I'm really a huge fan of this organization. And for those of you who are listening, be sure to check out Girls on the Run if you haven't heard about them. And Gladys, if I'm good to go and my legs are working well, I will run that 5K for your organization.
Oh, that is fantastic. That is fantastic.
You hear that? So I'm a woman of my word, so
no,
if I'm
absolutely,
up and running, I'm there.
Yeah, don't play. So yeah, definitely check out girlsontheRunPhiladelphia.org, girlsontheRunPhiladelphia.org, Gladys Cruz, gcruise79@gmail.com. Again, they're going to start at the Juniata Boys Club in a couple weeks, so you got to sign up. The young ladies in my life. Shout out to the Martinez family in North Jersey. Their daughters are all runners.
That's great.
And we were blessed to have the opportunity to actually see them in the regional championships.
That's amazing.
In New Jersey. No, it was in the summer in New Jersey, and the two of the daughters qualified for nationals. So really, it's really exciting. It's a great sport for anybody, but great to get our young women involved in that. So Yaya, the Sunday night.
I was sleeping.
Well, you were sleeping, but that's what YouTube is for. The Grammys were very anticipated for many reasons. One, obviously, is the Grammys, right? And we can debate it's legit. That's a bigger conversation about where the Grammy stands and things nowadays. But the Latino piece was really interesting because many of us were disappointed of the relative lack of love that the reggaeton Latin trap world was getting. B, people were hype about Cardi B's nominations. And then all of a sudden, they throw a curveball at us, and they're having a Motown tribute, which is wonderful, during Black History Month, even better. And then they picked Jennifer Lopez to do it, and we were all like, I don't know about this. So how do you think it worked out?
So, just so that we're clear, for those of you listening, this is Yaya Rivera, and those of you watching, you can see me.
And J-Lo's people are watching.
And J-Lo's
I'm sure somebody watching related to her, Puerto Rican. One of these Lopez's is taking down notes.
So, actually, my grandmother was a Lopez.
Nunca sabe. Her father's Morocovi, so you never know.
So, no, what's interesting is that, first of all, I had to watch them between yesterday and today and Monday because I'm asleep. I'm usually asleep by 8. Again, I hate to admit it. So with J-Lo, so I spoke to my African American friends about this today to see where their heads at. So there's a few angles I'm coming at from.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, I was doing research, and it technically, from what I've read, wasn't supposed to be a Motown tribute. It was supposed to be a Jackson 5 tribute with the Jackson 5, Stevie Wonder, J-Lo, and they were supposed to do a tribute to the Jackson 5. Since there's a new documentary coming out on Michael Jackson that is going to be, or searching or finding.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it was marketed as a Motown tribute.
Yeah. So they supposedly there's a lot of bad controversy around the documentary, so that's why they pulled that last minute.
Oh, gotcha.
And then they did the Motown tribute, which Stevie Wonder dropped out, and then Smokey Robinson came in with Alicia Keys, and that's when they did it. So I just wanted to give you a backup from what I read. And when I saw the tribute, I mean, J-Lo is one heck of an entertainer. I cannot take it away from her. But I got 2 different complaints from reading and kind of myself. One, is J-Lo too black enough as a Latina? 2, represent Motown. That was the one thing I heard and saw a lot. Secondly, why J-Lo? Those are the 2, out of all the African American artists or people that could have done it, why J-Lo? Okay, after watching it and seeing it as just solely from a spectator, she's such an entertainer. I'm not gonna lie, I was okay, girl, get it, you know what I mean?
And then the question is, it's so tricky, because I think it is a good conversation to have during Black History Month in the relation to the Latino community, and obviously there's overlap with Afro-Latinos, but as essentially many of us considering ourselves allies of the Black community.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, and then how sort of our role in these conversations. So, take race and ethnicity aside for a second. So the first thing I thought it was a bad fit because of who she is as an entertainer. She's a great entertainer, but essentially she's a dance pop artist. When you think about a musical perspective,
absolutely.
And the Latin piece too, but that's essentially what she is. So yeah, you're going to have choreography, you're going to have dancing, but I think for many of us, when you think about the Motown and really being the epicenter of the soul movement of this country, that, whoever does it, regardless of their ethnicity, really be an R&B diva.
That's what I was thinking too.
I
was thinking where was Jennifer Hudson?
Yeah, so, and look, I mean, it's hard for anyone to pull off the whole Motown thing by themselves. I mean, I think beyond Beyonce, maybe you could debate. People were saying Fantasia. I mean, even people like a Christina Aguilera, from a diva perspective, maybe, right? So I just thought it was an odd fit from that perspective. And then I thought about it from sort of a Latino perspective, look, I'm a soulful Puerto Rican guy. Obviously, people know my background, and we have a very sort of we talk a lot about and honor the Black experience on the show. And I was thinking about if I was in a similar situation. So obviously, I'm not an entertainer, but if I was invited, for example, to do a rendition of the letter from a Birmingham jail from MLK at a but I mean, the analogy, right? At his church in Atlanta, hypothetically, or some major African American event during this time period, right? So similarly, J-Lo was sort of in a similar position. She gets offered this opportunity. So obviously you're honored, right? Of course I would be honored to do something like that. But I think my sense would be sort of wanting to make sure I was staying in my lane, that I think I would have done some checking. And I thought the same thing. Like, as soon as it was on Facebook, I checked out what the sisters were saying. You know what I mean? My Nikki Mayo, my Tracy Sturdivant, like some of my great, particularly black female friends, and just kind of getting their perspective. And they were roughly in your area. Some were really trying to be careful because they didn't want to come off negative or anti-Latino.
Yeah.
So they were like, hey, we love J-Lo, but kind of thing. And I think the Latinos were more or less in the same boat. Like, you're cool, but it's just really the right choice. So I just think it's a lesson for us as allies to the black community, obviously feeling very strongly rooted and connected to blackness. But at the same time, I think understanding our position, that I think if we're ever in these kind of situations, I think it is appropriate to check in.
Honestly, Ray, that was beautiful. Like what you just said, I was like applauding in my head the whole time.
That's why Ray's talk show.
I was just like, yay, because honestly, like I felt the same way. And I'd be like, oh, it was terrible, it was awful, et cetera, because she did put on a show. But like the genre, like.
And no ponga malicia. She's not trying to, you know what I mean? Like she doesn't. She's not thinking about it that way. She's thinking, I'm a diva. This is an opportunity for me to grow as an artist and honor them. Like, but you gotta think twice.
So, like, who would you have replaced for J-Lo?
Look, who knows who's available? I mean, really, to do the Motown thing justice, one person, it's tough. Other than, like, a Beyonce and, I don't know, one or two of these mega artists. I mean, look, could Bruno Mars fit better?
That's exactly what my colleague said. My colleague was like...
They'd be like, oh, they wouldn't complain.
Exactly. That's exactly...
But Bruno Mars is a funk artist who has, because of his instrumentality, he plays good piano like Stevie did. He danced, like he's got a band. You know what I mean? He's an R&B funk artist who does pop because he has a certain style and he's got this exotic background. But is he one of the 3 or 4 people that can really pull it off by themselves? Yes. And he happens to be Puerto Rican Filipino. But my point is that it was even Bruno to me should check in.
Agreed.
That's my point.
I agree.
And maybe he checked in with Smokey. He loves J-Lo because he's been defending her left and right. So it's an interesting conversation. Love to hear the comments on Facebook Live. And anyone that hears this show, just check us out on our social media and let us know what you think of this conversation. I think it is important for Latinos to have these conversations around what is the role of allies, in wanting to, because, and I'll talk about this in a second, but, we certainly don't want to be in a position where we're perceived or, without intent, co-opting or, black culture. So we have to be careful about that. No, but in general, girl, Cardi B killed. I mean, I know you were hyped. About the show.
Just so that we're clear, the next morning I woke up and I saw that she won. Like, I literally looked at my fiance and I was just like bumping my arms and dancing. I was
Make
like, yes!
money moves.
Because honestly, like when
Team
I spoke
Cardi
at
here.
the Women's March, and I was like nervous at home. I was like, oh my God, like what was I thinking? Like hundreds of people, like this is crazy. I listened to Cardi B from the Fern Rock start, all the way in North Philly, all the way down to the Broad Street line to City Hall. And my fiance was like, what are you doing? I was like, making money moves. He's especially.
She was hyped. She got you hyped.
No, I love Cardi B. I think she broke a huge milestone. I mean, she did a huge milestone. She's breaking glass ceilings. She is the first woman to win that category.
First solo. I don't know if you saw Salt and Pepper were like, we were the first duo. You gotta give Salt and Pepper that, but yeah. But as a solo artist, absolutely.
That's huge. It was a rap album.
She probably was the first. I'm trying to think. I had to look at it. But she might have been the first. She obviously was the first Latina, but she might have been the first Latino, period, to win that award. I have to look at that. I don't know.
So we'll have to double check that. But I mean, the fact
Cypress
that she won,
or Joe ever won that.
And she's super. Like, it's not that she's new to the game.
No.
But this is like her first really well-known album that went double platinum. And it's so well-deserved. I'm kind of bummed because she deleted her Instagram account. Well, not deleted, but she deactivated her Instagram account and a few things because of a video that she released kind of handling the backlash. People saying that she didn't deserve it, that it should have went to Mac Miller because he passed away and all of these things.
And she gave Mac love.
She gave him so much love. She's like, this is our
She had like 7 hits on
Grammy.
This album. I mean, she was legit. No
exactly.
question.
So, I don't know. Like, I'm super pumped that she won. I love that album. I said it like 5 shows ago. I was like, there's nothing that I don't love about that album, Invasion of Privacy. I listened to it the day that it came out, front to back, and I was like, you know what, I love this. And I'm so super proud and happy that she represents our community. And I just, you know what, go. We need to lift each other up and stop with the shenanigans that she didn't deserve it. Every single song on that album was a hit.
She deserved this much.
It was a hit. So kudos to Cardi B.
Cardi's doing her thing, and she's really risen in my, particularly with her political stuff. She's risen the ranks for me. And look, everyone loves the story. I mean, she's raw. Everyone got a cousin or a sibling that just, no pela la lengua. You know what I mean? Just says what's on top of their mind. You love them, and sometimes you cringe, but at the end of the day, she's authentic. She is who she is. She's very smart. Her political stuff is outstanding. The more I hear her talk, she got invited to speak at a Democratic event in Iowa, I think she's continued to be underestimated. So much love to you, Cardi.
Yes,
at some
Cardi.
point, can you get Offset to kind of play his role? Talk about a guy not playing his role. That's another conversation. But we love Cardi here, and let me tell you, that was so exciting to see the opening performance with Camila Cabello, J Balvin, and Ricky Martin, of course, who we've been fans of since, I don't know, kindergarten, I think, at this point.
J Balvin is like, I'm already on year 15 with J Balvin.
Yeah.
And like Ricky Martin when he's like with Menudo.
He's doing his thing, and people are really excited about it. They did such a good job with that because they sort of did a bunch of stuff that you have to kind of know the Latino scene really well to sort of pick up on. So, like, they incorporated the great Cuban musician Arturo Sandoval into it, which was a legend in Latin jazz. And then that was a nice nod to that part of our community. And then Instagram stars LaJuan James and Lily Pons were involved.
Oh, really?
He was playing the viejita, and they were part of the acting of it.
Right.
So, kind of representing for the millennial generation. I guess they're friends in Florida and stuff. And those are like little things she didn't have to do, but like really smart, really considerate, kind of representing for different flavors of our community. So Camila Cabello is great. Ricky, of course, is timeless, that guy. And, he's the only guy nowadays to pull off a mustache. Mustaches are hard.
It's like a goatee mustache.
Yeah.
Too.
Well, Ricky can do whatever. Everybody loves him.
Yeah.
Everybody love him. So the last thing I'm going to say, and then we'll take a break, is that, as part of this conversation with J-Lo, and we're gonna have to have a whole conversation about reggaeton, and there's so much with this cultural stuff. But one of the things I did want to point out, and this is the thing Puerto Ricans may not like, is I was thinking about this J-Lo thing and sort of how Puerto Ricans are kind of real good at remixing things, is that, you could argue that Puerto Ricans, I'm going to go so deep on this, you have no idea, that Puerto Ricans, a part of our success and sort of, being these global stars with our music genres and our celebrities, is we do have a tendency to sort of take black culture from another country and sort of remix it and sort of make it a little more less black and a little more pop crossover. Think about it. The salsa rhythms came from Cuba and black Cubans, and then we made it mainstream. Well, Bomba Plena is from Puerto Rico, but salsa came from Cuba. So came from Cuba. Remember, well, you were young when this happened, but for a hot minute, Puerto Ricans took merengue over.
Yeah, but I was never a huge fan of merengue. So
neither was I. But my point is that we put a lighter. Let's keep it real. We put a lighter face on it. It was Crespo, Manny Manuel, Olga Tañón. We sort of mainstreamed it within Latin America.
Yeah. If
people remember, initially, reggaeton started as Spanish reggae with black Panamanians.
That's right. So
Afro-Panamanians who had a connection with the West Indies, General and those guys, Chabacán. I'm going way back. We're going the real deal. No, General. Yeah, no, General. He's like 60-something now. It's crazy, but he's gotten older. And then they had their moment for like a year, and then Puerto Ricans, a little lighter skin, have a little different flavor, remixed it, made it reggaeton, and put their own spin on it, and it's gone on. And most of the artists are not black people, in Puerto Rican terms.
Agreed. I mean,
so some are. So we have to think about, our role in, even as someone like a J-Lo or as Puerto Ricans or Latinos, like we do on some level, whether we understand it or not, are promoting black culture, and what are we doing to honor it as we engage in it and celebrate it?
Agreed.
I know there's some people that are going to be like, damn, I never thought of it that way. But that's why you got to listen to Ray's Talk Show. Yaya, we come back, we're going to stack another 20.
You are listening to WPPM LP 106.5 FM in Philadelphia. And you're listening to the What's Next radio show and Ray's Latino Talk podcast.
Thank you so much, Yaya Rivera, my co-host. Really appreciate you. Episode 298 on the grind here. We are approaching our 6-year anniversary of the show in a few months. We have to throw a real big party, and of course, approaching our 300th episode. A lot going on here on Ray's Talk Show. And again, as always, thank our WPPM listeners here at 106.5 FM and our executive producer, Vanessa Rivera. Support PhillyCam, phillycam.org/listen. So if you're not in Philadelphia, but you want to listen to the great programming, community programming we have here at People Power Media, you can check it out there. And of course on iTunes, the iTunes app, you have PhillyCam. You can listen to the Ray's Talk podcast. Everywhere you can download a podcast. I love when people find out about us, then they subscribe and they see, wow, I missed like 5 years, and they go on these, I've heard this, they go on these weekend binges where they listen to 10-15 episodes because there's so much good stuff. We have so many great people. Go into the archives. Presidente from Calle Tres has been on the show. Ray Suarez, a lot of great people, a lot of great guests. The only bad news I have to announce is that we won't be live next week. I have to go to Washington, D.C. and bunch to do hoity-toity things. Adulting, do some work, be on the grind. But we've already taped the show. A great friend to the show. I had an interview. I had a chance to speak to him. Jeffrey Vargas from Generationology. He is one of the foremost experts on the country on how different generations of workers work together. So how do millennials work with Generation X people? How do baby boomers manage and hire and cultivate millennials? So the Generation Z, some of them are starting to enter the workforce. Right. So he is a credible expert. He's got a great message, a wonderful guy, one of my, not only a great friend, but really a spiritual advisor. And he's someone with a wonderful soul. And we also get into, you talk about the sports. Jeffrey Vargas is one of my great fellow Puerto Rican basketball nerds. So the last segment of the show, we get into some serious hoops talk, which I know people will enjoy. So, are you a basketball fan, Yaya?
I am a basketball fan, college basketball. The NBA hurts my soul.
Hurts your soul? Wow, that's a powerful statement.
I played basketball most of my life. I started playing basketball when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I went all the way up to sophomore or junior year of high school when I decided I didn't want to play for the team. But no, I just love basketball. Love the fundamentals of basketball. I love the discipline. There's so many things that I love about basketball, and I just feel like sometimes the NBA misses the mark. I will watch the playoffs, and I will watch certain teams.
Who's your college team?
Well, I don't really have a college team. I just love March Madness. My sister and I.
Oh, okay.
Shout out to my sister Sonia. You better be ready with your bracket.
Wow. That's are you following Zion Williamson, this guy from Duke?
Yeah, it's
like,
crazy.
It's like a pinball. He bounces all over the place.
No, it's like
he's an interesting player.
No, but I do watch basketball. Like I said, I love the sport, but I'm not always a huge fan of the NBA. So
yeah, no, I've really enjoyed the NBA the last several years. Of course, I'm a trusted processor. Actually, the big it's a long story, but the big Sixers podcast is actually named after a very obscure Puerto Rican basketball player, Ricky Sanchez. Michael Collazo, my brother, is the Hoops Connection. So he said now that the show's got a little lighter vibe, he wants to come on the show and talk basketball. I said, no problem. So much respect, Mike. And he appreciates these conversations. We're stacking 20s, Yaya.
That's right. We're stacking 20s.
So for people that may have missed last week's show, every time we talk about the presidential race, it is the Stacking 20 segment. Of course, 2020 is next year. And so we do it for a good cause. People can see in my hand, I have a $20 bill. Every time one of these presidential candidates formally declares, we add a stack to the stack. All money that's generated from this segment of the show this year will go to the Love Shouldn't Hurt campaign.
That's right.
With our great friend Christina Vega. So, another 20s added to the list. Minnesota.
Drum roll, please.
Boom. Minnesota Senator.
I'm ready. Amy Klobuchar or Booker?
You know, it's so funny because you're from the middle of the state. You're from the sticks.
Can't.
The boonies. I'm sure you grew up with Klobuchars.
I never grew up with a Klobuchar.
No, a Klobuchar? Okay, all right.
So
Amy Klobuchar, Minnesota Senator. Now her sort of argument in the case is that she combines sort of like this pragmatic approach. She's a good Democrat. She's generally progressive on issues. But she's someone that can kind of work all boss and get things done. And she's she packs, so she's pretty gun friendly, which is a flag. And she's trying to position herself as someone that is nice, can work with these Republicans, not scare white people of the Midwest because she's from Minnesota, but has grit. And that's her word, is grit. And part of what she wanted to express with this kind of tough gal vibe was, I don't know if you saw it, but she announced her candidacy at the foot of the Mississippi River on a bridge in Minnesota in a blizzard. So this woman and her 50 people outside, it was like negative 20 degrees.
Was it even 50 people? I think it was like...
Yeah, there was some people out there. It might even been 72. She had a little crowd. But when it's minus 20, let me tell you something. My wife loved me. I don't know if she's going to be out in the snow in minus 20. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I wouldn't expect her to because it's ridiculous. But she wanted to show as a female that she's tough. She can get it done. And the whole beginning of the Mississippi, all this, you know, I guess she had rebuilt this bridge at some point. And so she was out there and she got covered in snow. So let me ask you a question. I have two questions for you, Yaya.
I'm excited about my question.
With Senator Klobuchar, do you think her trying to show as a woman candidate that she can be tough and have this quote-unquote grit, that setting makes a difference? And do you think that that's even fair that she has to be out here in a blizzard to show people that she's tough?
See, what's really frustrating about politics in general is that women have to show their masculinity or show that they're rough and tough in order to quote-unquote make it. Or if they raise their voice, they're being too masculine. If they have short hair, they're too masculine. Like, honestly, I'm not here for it. I think that having to show that you're tough to be a good politician, I don't think that's necessary.
So you're saying she could have had it inside and it would have been fine with you?
She could have, like, prevented...
There are heated buildings
frostbite.
in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's heated buildings, and I think it was just being extra.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that was interesting was that the initial hit pieces that came out on her was that there's all this speculation and all these articles that came out in the DC papers and stuff and the political paper blogs, is that she's really hard on her staff. She yells at them. She's had a lot of staff.
Are you surprised?
A lot of staff turnover.
Like, are you really surprised with how jacked she sounds all the time? I mean, like, I'm just like, I mean, as a woman, I understand why.
Do you think that's a double standard? Because when guys are tough, look, our president was all based on you being fired and being a tough boss.
It's 1,000% a double standard, and it's a double standard that I personally, being in leadership positions throughout my life, actually dislike, like, too much. Like, we can go on this forever. As a woman, we're always depicted a certain way, or women in general, I feel. And the moment we raise our voice, it's like, oh my God, everybody gasps. I think it's necessary at times to raise your voice. Absolutely. I feel like it's necessary to stand up against people and have to be stern and, stand tall. I mean, I'm the queen of that. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to front. Like, I try to step up to any occasion regardless of my physique. I get that. But, like, to try to use that as a selling point to prove that you can get it done, like, to me, that doesn't sell anything because the president didn't sell me. And people that overdo it to say, oh, I'm great, I'm tough, I'm strong, like, I'm not interested.
Interesting.
Because some of the most fearless leaders and those who, to me personally, change the world are empathetic. They show compassion and they show kindness and love. It's the other way around. I mean, we see what's happening.
Yeah. So Senator Klobuchar, just my quick political analysis, she's a strong candidate. She's good. She's got a good reputation. I think she, generally, other than this being a tough boss thing, is considered sort of clean ethically. She'll, being from a strategic perspective, being sort of in a neighboring state of Iowa is an advantage. Obama even had that advantage being in the Midwest when he ran years ago. And so I think my analysis is that a lot of the punditry are thinking that sort of she's competing with the other Midwest candidates, particularly Sherrod Brown, and sort of and Joe Biden to some degree, like kind of from a tone perspective, who can kind of be the candidate that basically is palatable to the rest of us, the bulk of the Democratic Party, minorities and young people and sort of urban progressives, but is someone that the Midwest Democratic voters and sort of this moderate, independent white community in the Midwest that, maybe voted for Obama, then voted for Trump would flip back. And so I don't think at the end of it, it's going to play out that way. I really think, and I'm not saying this is a good thing, but I really think the media is really going to dictate a lot of this framing. And I really think at the end of the day, she's going to beat with the other white women. And I know it sounds messed up. I'm not saying I like it. I didn't invent the rules. I didn't invent how the media. So I really think they're going to decide at one point that on some level, Warren, Gillibrand, or Klobuchar is the white woman that's going to get it to the end. And they're really going to push that narrative, even though Warren's more on the progressive side. So you would think she's going to be running more against Bernie and people like Kamala Harris. But I could be wrong. I really think it's kind of, but she's got, look, when you got so many candidates in the race, the question you brought up, which is a good one, is grit really going to be the thing that drives people to support her?
I just want to quickly just reiterate that, like, I disagree with why they do that, but I also see why it's necessary being a woman in politics. But I don't agree with it.
I hear you. Yeah, it's tough.
I mean, it's tough because it's like women in general. I feel like as a woman, I'll speak on behalf of myself. It's really hard. It's really hard to find that happy medium, especially based off of your physical appearance and your stature. Sometimes you gotta yell for people to listen, and like for what? If you would just listen to me, I wouldn't have to yell.
Let me ask you on that, and it came up more on the racial side than the gender side with Kamala Harris. I don't know if you saw. Did you see her appearance on The Breakfast Club?
Who, Kamala?
Yeah,
I did.
So the I didn't see it, but the clip that I saw, which I thought was interesting and provocative, was basically they were talking about her stance on marijuana use and cannabis use.
What she used to do and listen to.
And, that she used to smoke. Yeah, she smoked it back in the days, and then said something like, oh, but you don't want to get rid of pot, right? And she said, well, my family's Jamaican, and, I can't be against that. And I thought, I felt on some level she was kind of, her code switching is extreme. And some people are just like that. I'm kind of like that, so I understand. But, when we get down, we get real down. But I thought, I don't know, it came off to me like trying a little too hard. I don't know, but
I have mixed feelings about it. Again. It's so, like I said, I'm
not that I have an issue with pot per se, but
really,
to get into this, like, I'm down because I'm Jamaican, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm being really wishy-washy in regards to the politicians that are running, like I said last
It's early.
Because it's too early. But, why do you have to smoke weed and listen to certain music to get down with black people? And that's kind of what I felt like she was trying to do.
Yeah.
Like, I feel that I know plenty of people who are not African American who, enjoy cannabis and listen to gin and juice. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like you don't have to follow or abide by a stereotype to get respect from that group of people.
That's right.
Like, just be about it and just let it go. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like it needs to be promoted or advertised. Like, that's something that you and your friends know and just call it a day.
Yeah, no, and look, I mean, that could have been how she felt about it. I just felt that it was interesting that she kind of went there on her appearance on The Breakfast Club. Speaking of candidates, now this person is not formally declared, but it was interesting how we were doing the pregame show that you were like, we got to make sure we talk about this. So I have a feeling you have you have a soft place in your heart for Beto O'Rourke, a potential candidate. So what was your thoughts about his sort of counter-protest, counter-rally when President Trump shamefully went to El Paso? El Paso's a wonderful place, but his shameful comments on the border, basically fomenting this anti-Latino rhetoric that he's basically all he has left for his presidency. Yeah,
so Beto O'Rourke, I was following him during his race against Ted Cruz, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah. So sometimes I have to guess myself. Like, Ray is so good at politics.
That's what I do for a living. I better be good at it.
So sometimes when I'm like,
my title is political director. I better be. I'm directing something.
Sometimes when I go to talk about it, I'm like, wait, was it Ted Cruz? But no, it was Ted Cruz. Yes. I loved his integrity and like how he spoke and his, his charisma and how he is very eloquent. And so I didn't watch the president's speech because his attack on the Latinx community, to me, is so beyond repulsive. I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of how if any other group of people were to be attacked, in any sense of the word, the Latinx community and the Hispanics, for those who consider themselves that, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So let's just put that there. I'm tired. I'm tired of the wall's going to bring safety. I'm tired that you need to learn how to speak English. I'm tired of except you go to every Taco Tuesday. Like, I'm sick of hearing it,
There's a great article in Forbes this week, and you can Google it. Is that now this is Forbes. This ain't no rinky-dink operation.
No, it's Forbes.
Forbes magazine has an article that lays out the economic argument that the reason that the economy is doing relatively well, and you can debate that, but generally speaking, the economy is progressing on some level, is that Latinos have more to do with it because of our small business, because of our participation in the labor force, than any of the president's policies.
Well, yeah, we're actually one of the largest growing population in the United States, and we're going to be, for those who listen to actually radio and media, and the community, the Latinx community also is...
We're the ones working!
Yeah, of course. We're also in charge of a lot of consumerism.
That's right.
I think it's in the trillions. So
that's
that. So when I read excerpts, because we do this show, I actually have to read things. When I read what the president not my president, but the president has to say in regards to why the wall is necessary. And it's all hatred. It's all rhetoric. I'm done. So when Beto goes on stage and he talks.
If for people that are not watching this, she's got a little smile on her face for this guy.
It makes my heart smile because he took the extra step to speak in Spanish and speak to his people. It's like, that to me made my heart smile because it's like, you know what? I'm tired of saying learn English. Why don't you learn Spanish? This isn't your country. It never was your country. It belonged to those who are indigenous, Native Americans of this country. I don't see classes on that language. And it's like, I feel like he always takes the extra yard. Or takes the extra step. I would say that the extra step to kind of communicate and be empathetic towards those group of people that were there, because you heard the audience or the crowd go crazy after he did his little segment in Spanish. And I don't know, it made my heart smile because it's like, even he may be the best or worst politician. I don't know, and I don't follow him well enough to do that. From what I've seen with the race in Texas and what I see now, the anti-protest rally or the protest rally against Trump's rally, I was proud in that moment. I'm like, at least there's still politicians that see and call BS are not going to stand up against the president the same time that he's doing his rhetoric and say, okay, this is not cool, and let's do it. So I was happy. It made my heart smile.
Yeah, no, I know you did it. Beto, look, on a political level, that's when Beto's at his best. I mean, that kind of large crowd, that moment, obviously, the issue on the border in his local community is the one he's sort of. He has some gravitas and he has some authority. I mean, it's something he dealt with as a congressman and he lives it as an El Paso resident. And, he's really good in that setting. He really fills the space. Now, the question will be if he decides to run, a lot of settings you got to feel comfortable in. That's right. There's the coffee clutch in New Hampshire. There's the very staged basic cable stage where you're with 12 people that, in the case of a Kamala or a Booker, you're talking about some of the top debating legal minds in the country. And, that's a whole different sound bites and moments and policy scrutiny. And, he doesn't have the same kind of record that others will have running. So, can he stand? Is he, does he have the, how would you say, all the skills?
I would say stamina.
The stamina and all the skills. But that particular moment, he looks like he can definitely hold his own against President Trump. And we give Beto a lot of props. Cristobal Alex, great friend of ours in El Paso, was there supporting the rally in his hometown and was taking some great social media footage and actually got a few moments with Congressman O'Rourke, Beto O'Rourke, like I said, a college friend of mine. So we wish Beto well. And once he officially declares Yaya, we'll be able to stack another 20 for your Papi Chulo there. And your political crush. I'm just playing. I don't want to get your man upset here today for Valentine's Day. And we come right back. We're going to give Yaya an opportunity to give us some final Valentine's Day tips. You're listening to WPPM LP Philadelphia, 106.5 FM in Philadelphia. Like my grandma, Philadelphia. For those listening to 106.5 FM, a lot of Spanish-speaking programming here. Emma Restrepo, a great friend to the show. She's doing her show here now, and a lot of interesting talents coming to the forefront. Of course, that's happening under the leadership of our executive producer and director of WPPM, Vanessa Maria Graber. Check out PhillyCam at phillycam.org/listen for all the programming. And you can always check us out also at Ray's Latino Talk Podcast. Download the podcast anywhere. You can download the podcast. Really appreciate the fan interaction here on Facebook Live, as well as all of our shout outs and interaction on social media. You're going to give people your final for people that are maybe scrambling to the last mall that's open tonight, or possibly a Target in an odd hour. Anything that's 24 hours. I don't know who might be fitting that category. What's wrong with them? Any final last minute thoughts about things to get ready for Valentine's Day for the special ones in your life?
write them a handwritten letter.
Mm.
And, use maybe iambic pentameter, or be poetic, or be charismatic. I feel too much in this world right now where everything's electronic. Cell phones, computers, iPads, like everything is just so electronic. Like, just take that minute from heart to pen to paper to tell them how much you care about them.
That's beautiful. That's
Yes.
beautiful. Do you write haikus?
I do. I write them on
Really?
I write them on my mirrors throughout my house.
Haikus are hard. It's like 17 syllables, right? In three lines?
No, I mean, yes, it is hard, but
it's very restrictive.
So you do, haikus, words of affirmations, anything to kind of get your mind going.
Yeah.
Put it, let's say, don't tell them you're writing it and don't hand it to them. Let's say they have a work bag, right? Put it in their laptop, in their work bag, like all nice folded up, so that when they get to work, they see the letter.
It's the little things, no question.
Like something really sweet,
No doubt.
and that's, a handwritten letter, because I feel like writing nowadays is becoming extinct. And, and just put your heart on paper and tell them how much you care about them, and maybe do a moment within your relationship that you're thankful for them.
One of the things that's really sweet, and we do this on not just Valentine's Day, but holidays, is that my sons are so good at, particularly my oldest son, around wanting to do handwritten notes and cards to my wife, whether it's Christmas or birthday, what have you, Valentine's Day. And they've gotten me into doing it a little bit with them and helping them. And it's a really nice experience, not just with them doing it and watching them doing it, but doing it together. So, again, it provides an opportunity to sort of slow down a little bit and focus on what's important and really get you thinking about, because writing those, we're not all as poetic as you are, Yaya, but taking the time to think through what your feelings is also very valuable, and it helps you communicate.
And the
with
fact
your
that you're
partner.
writing it by hand adds that extra flavor. And there's so many different places where you can get really dope paper. I know. So you can make it as fancy or not as fancy as you want. So you can go to like Target, or you can go to a FedEx.
I'm becoming like an AC Moore nut. I was an AC Moore today.
Right?
Oh my
or
God,
like
you can
Michael's
live in
or
those
AC
places.
Moore. Yeah, so you find
Sticker mania.
add stickers to your letter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
we
so
may
there's
have
so
something
many
like that
ways
cooking,
that you can write a very sweet letter to your loved one or loved ones, and make it very personal and very true to your heart.
That's very beautiful. Last thing before we let you all go, I want to let you know that there's a lot of interesting, there actually are things that Democrats are trying to do in Washington. So just from a political perspective, keep an eye out. Congresswoman Delora Davis and Senator Gillibrand just introduced the Family Act. So this would provide resources, 12 weeks of partially paid leave for new parents and those caring for sick relatives. So, we're trying to create an agenda of what's possible and what should be happening in this country. And unfortunately, the media focuses too much on, kind of the celebrity things, and Bezos, the extortion trial, which is exciting and interesting. But at the end of the day, having a conversation about how do we support people that need to take time off work to take care of a loved one? How do we help, particularly our young families, our young single moms with daycare and other resources that they need just to get to work? So these are the kind of things that we're working on. So we'll talk more about those sort of DC policies, the Family Act, and some other things that are cooking in Washington. Yaya, any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Hold those that you love dear to your heart. Give them a hug. If there's somebody that's on your mind, take a second of your day to call them, to tell them how much you care about them. Don't take any moment with those you love for granted, because you don't know how much time you have on this earth.
You're right about that.
And for Valentine's Day, spread love.
It's a wonderful way to. That's
right?
why you're the co-host, my friend, because you hit it right on the head. Thank you so much, Yashira Rivera. Let people know where they can continue the conversation about love on social media.
Yes, Yaya _ RIVERA_. I am on all platforms. That's where you can find me. And don't worry, I already posted yesterday. My fiance made me vegetarian taste. What are they called? Tasty treats with like the Rice Krispie treats. Yes, vegetarian Rice Krispie treats. Like that's a great gift as well if you have a loved one who's a vegetarian.
Oh yeah, it's the little things. There's no question about that. And I want to shout out my wonderful wife, Michelle Collazo, because not just because it's Valentine's tomorrow, but this has been a long journey. I've been grinding on podcasting and pursuing my dream of expressing myself in the media for many years. And, there's been a lot of nights where, hey, I'll take care of the kids, as she's doing now. And, these small sacrifices, and oftentimes the loved ones in our lives that are more behind the scenes don't get the credit they deserve for those kind of moments and that showing that commitment to their loved ones. So thank you, baby. I love you a lot. And, this is another example of the love she shares with me. So thank you all so much. And Yaya, it's been lovely. Happy Valentine's Day. What did Walter Mercado used to say? Amor.
Do it. Mucho, mucho, mucho.
Mwah. Amor. Thanks for listening to Ray's Talk Show.